Factsverse presents The Undertaker Out of the Casket, 15 Things You Didn't Know About the Phenom. Mark Calaway, also known as The Undertaker, has been a huge fixture in the wrestling industry for decades now. He made a name for himself almost immediately, and his dead man gimmick is the greatest persona he's ever used. From day one, people were hooked. He's been using the name The Undertaker since 1990. During his career, he has had some high moments and some low moments. The Undertaker's been in the WWE for so long, everybody knew that his retirement would come eventually. He decided to make his last appearance at WrestleMania 33, which took place April 2, 2017. As he turned to leave the ring for the last time, his chilling music played. He exited the ring, kissed his wife, and headed down the ramp out of the stadium. It was a very emotional moment for everybody there, including his fellow wrestlers. The life of a wrestler isn't an easy one. Not only is there constant training and pain in the ring, but pro wrestlers also travel a lot. Most of them spend most of the year on the road, living in hotel rooms and out of suitcases more than living in their own homes. And that can make it hard to find love and maintain a stable relationship and family. Not easy to make a relationship work when you only have about 3 weeks out of the entire year to spend together. And Mark understood this problem all too well. He was first married in 1989 when he was still new to the wrestling industry. He and his wife were together for 10 years before things came to an end. A year after Mark's divorce was final, he met his second wife, Sarah. She was in the wrestling industry for a short time, but when she left, the relationship began to fizzle. After getting divorced to her, Mark started dating again, this time to Michelle McCool, one of the best divas in the WWE at the time. The couple's been together now for 7 years, and they have a daughter. Most wrestlers have a side business that brings in extra money and gives them something to do after they retire. Wrestling is a very demanding sport, and there comes a time when wrestlers do eventually have to give it up. When they do, they want to have another source of income there waiting for them, and Mark is no different. Mark's been investing in real estate for decades, along with his business partner Scott Everhart. Over the years, they've been building, buying, or renovating properties all across America. One of the most significant projects that they ever took part in was a $2.7 million building in Loveland, Colorado called the Kalahart. Mark and Scott constructed the building from the ground up. Investing in real estate is a legitimate business for Mark, and he is heavily involved in it. He's also made some pretty good investments over the years that have really paid off, making him plenty of money. Jenna Jameson was once regarded the queen of porn. She had plenty of friends back in the day, and Mark was one of them. The two were really good friends, and they spent a lot of time together. They met at a tattoo studio and began talking. After that, they became close friends. This was before he took on the persona The Undertaker. Jenna wrote an autobiography, and in the book she discussed her friendship with Mark. She described him as one seriously weird dude. She says that he was so intense back then and so serious that he was psychotic. Unfortunately, the friendship didn't last. Jenna claims the last time she saw Mark that he threatened to beat up her boyfriend and kidnap her. What caused him to behave that way, we don't know, but she's right about him being crazy. Many pro wrestlers with huge followings will often star in movies. The Rock is of course the prime example of this, but John Cena has had his time on screen, Stone Cold Steve Austin did, just to name a few wrestlers who've made it big in Hollywood. While John Cena still fights in the ring, The Rock ended his career in the WWE when he became a sought-after actor with millions of fans. Mark also had his chance to act, but his career didn't flourish the way that The Rock's has. He made his film debut in the 1991 film Suburban Commando. After that movie, he worked on a few other films with guest roles and made numerous appearances on TV. If you're a fan of the MMA, you may already know that Mark was involved with that too. He trained in the MMA for a long time, particularly in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He trained under the legendary practitioner of Jiu-Jitsu, Rolls Gracie. Mark excelled very quickly, and he earned his black belt in Jiu-Jitsu in only 19 months back in 2011. He managed to do this while he was wrestling, working on the road most of the year. Mark had great respect and understanding of what it took to be a true MMA competitor. He is also pretty tight with many of the MMA pros. Although he trained for years in MMA, he has never fought in the octagon. Now that he's retired, he could get back into it at some point, maybe as a competitor or probably more likely as a coach. Mark loves any type of fighting sport. Like I said, he is proficient at boxing and MMA. He's also a pretty good kickboxer. His wife, Michelle McCool, taught him to kickbox because she was an avid kickboxer before she got into wrestling. Mark also loves regular boxing. He's never been in the ring personally, but he does love to watch it. If there's ever a big fight, you can be sure Mark is going to be somewhere in that audience. When Manny Pacquiao faced Velasquez in 2005, Mark led Pacquiao to the ring, and he carried the American flag on the way down. He was also sitting front row for the famous fight between Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis in 2002. He made sure to be there for every big fight that took place over the last few decades. In the wrestling industry, it's unusual for somebody to stay with the same promotion for over a decade. Even the best of the best who wrestle for the WWE eventually move on. There are a few exceptions, including John Cena, The Big Show, and, of course, The Undertaker. These guys are practically furniture in the WWE. When Mark signed his contract in 1990, he remained loyal. He became a legend, lining himself with Vince McMahon, Triple H, and their cronies, and people loved him. For 27 years, he played the same character and never thought about moving on to another promotion. He knew he belonged in the WWE, and they signed his paychecks for 27 years. It didn't take long for The Undertaker to rise up the ranks in the WWE. He was the main man and was said to have had a lot of clout backstage, too. He was very influential. Unlike other wrestling superstars, he didn't have to bully people to get respect. He earned it the proper way, and this respect gave him the ability to run things his way. People listened to it, and the WWE was better for it. Thinking of what professional wrestling would have been like if Triple H, the Clique, and Shawn Michaels had their way is horrible. Triple H may have stuck to Vince McMahon like glue, but The Undertaker was close to him as well. They were really tight during his time in the WWE, and The Undertaker can be credited for a lot of what happened in and out of the ring. It's believed that he twisted Vince's arm from time to time, getting him to ditch ideas that made no sense. And that was great for the WWE because Vince has had some pretty insane ideas over the years. There weren't too many people in the industry that Vince would listen to, but The Undertaker was one of them. In the wrestling industry, it's not uncommon for a family member to already be in the industry. Either a person has a relative in the industry and they want to follow in that relative's footsteps, or they're already in the industry and family wants to follow in their footsteps. Well, when The Undertaker came on the scene, he didn't have any family in the industry. He does have family in wrestling, of course, his wife, Michelle McCool, but the two weren't married when he first started out. He did have a blood-related family member follow in his footsteps, though, and he became a wrestler in the WWE. His name is Brian Lee. He's Mark's cousin. He spent 15 years in the industry in both TNA and the WWE. While in the WWE, he played the imposter version of his cousin, known as the Imposter Undertaker. He never managed to branch out on his own and create his own persona. The Undertaker may be all about gloom and doom, but out of the ring, Mark is a big softie. He loves animals, particularly dogs. He has had dogs all his life, and he even set up a charitable organization for large breed dogs. He created it with his second wife, Sarah. It's called the Zeus Compton Callaway Save the Animals Fund. It's designed to help pay for life-saving procedures for dog owners who can't afford it. Mark and Sarah started the charity after the death of their own dog, Mastiff Zeus. They knew how hard it was for them, so they wanted to help others. When you look at Mark as The Undertaker, it's hard to picture him as anything else, especially as a basketball player. When he was in high school, though, he did play basketball. After graduation, he got into Angelina College on a basketball scholarship and then moved on to Texas Wesleyan University, where he majored in sports management. That was when he got really involved in basketball. He played for the basketball team there, dropped out of school to pursue basketball full-time. He was making plans to play in Europe when he switched his focus to wrestling. He never gave a reason why, but obviously it worked out well for him. Here's the undoubtedly weirdest fact on our list about Mark. He adopted the persona of a dead man performing satanic rituals. Now, you'd think that a guy like that's not afraid of anything, but believe it or not, Mark is terrified of cucumbers. I know, it's an irrational fear, but that does not change how Mark feels about this harmless vegetable. He kept his fear under wraps for a while, probably because it would destroy his image, but Paul Bearer found out about this phobia and he used it to play a prank on Mark. Paul filled Mark's hat with cucumbers, and when Mark found them, he started to scream and ran away. He was shouting that he was going to vomit. It's really crazy that he'd be afraid of a harmless vegetable, and nobody knows exactly why. The Undertaker walked into the ring to a funeral march, and he'd often use crosses and coffins as props in the ring. He even kidnapped Stephanie McMahon and strung her up on a cross, trying to force her to marry him in an unholy ceremony. Well, that's all a gimmick. Mark is actually a very religious guy. He admits to getting uncomfortable once in a while portraying the dead man gimmick because of his strong religious beliefs. He managed to put it aside, though, to play the part. He says eventually playing his persona just became second nature. In the mid to late 90s, the Clique ran everything in the WWE. The Clique consisted of Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, Triple H, Scott Hall, and Sean Waltman. They ran things in the locker room. They stuck together and watched out for one another. And this bond helped everybody, with the exception of Sean Waltman, to the top. The Undertaker had a complicated relationship with the Clique. He liked some and despised others. He didn't like the group as a whole, so he started his own group called the Bone Street Crew. It was made up of Yokozuna, both Godwins, Savio Vega, Crush, and The Godfather. Unfortunately, the members of the group didn't have as much going for them as the Clique did, and soon the group fizzled out. When you look at Mark, you automatically think about The Undertaker. What you might not know is that it's not the first persona he took. There was a lot of trial and error in the beginning, and it took him cycling through 6 personas before he was able to settle on The Undertaker. He started out as Texas Road, but then became the Master of Pain, then the Punisher. Next he was Mean Mark Callis, Punisher Dice Morgan, finally The Undertaker. What's your favorite WWE wrestler? Tell us in the comments, and subscribe for more.